The following is a presentation of the BP8 Podcast Network.
Hi, folks, and welcome to a brand new football sports podcast from yours truly. I'm Brian Pate, and I'm here with Joel Bryant, my cohort in crime, and we're here to talk about sports.
We're calling this From the Press Box.
From the Press Box.
Because
I have been a PA announcer now for 19 years for Wakefield High School from 2000 until 2009, and then Heritage from 2000 until 2018 so far.
You've been able to announce some pretty good teams over the years.
I have announced some great football games. I've announced a lot of ACC football and basketball players. I've called a couple of state championship games for Time Warner Cable, and I was the commentator with Paul for the first two Wakefield State Championship games. And so, yeah, I've gotten some great opportunities to be on the sidelines. And the best thing about being the announcer for football and basketball is you always get the best seat in the house. And same thing with baseball, because you always get to sit behind home plate. So later on in the broadcast today, we'll tell you the story of how I got thrown out of a high school baseball game years ago. That's one of my favorite stories.
That's a great story.
It's a great story. So what do we want to talk about first? You want to talk some football?
Well, we're in the thick of football season now.
Yeah.
NFL's in week 4, college is week 5.
The fifth season, college football. So,
I love football so much.
NFL,
I'm a big NFL fan, except for when the Eagles lose.
I know you. Well, you're wearing a Fly Eagles Fly cap right now, and I know you have your Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl champ shirts and stickers and all of that stuff. So,
well, they didn't look like Super Bowl champs today against the Titans.
Yeah, well, that's going to happen. It's the NFL. It's parity. That's what they want. They want different teams winning regularly.
That game was disgusting. They gave up 3 first downs on 4th down in overtime on one drive.
For those of you that can't hear it in his voice, Joel's only a little bit bitter on this. So Joel is one of the most sarcastic people you will ever meet. So he's always fun to have around.
That's not true.
Often put you in your place when you don't realize it's coming. So let's start out with some. Let's start out with some college football.
So we both went to the games yesterday, which was Saturday the 29th.
29th, yeah.
You go to every App State home game.
We have season tickets at Appalachian State, and then I've seen Florida State and Virginia Tech live, and that game in Tallahassee, and then I've seen Appalachian State play. Let's see, who have I seen App play? I've seen App play South Alabama
and Charlotte,
and I've seen them play UNC Charlotte, and there was somebody else that I saw him play a couple of weeks ago that they beat the tar out of.
But it's a good thing that Shannon picked App State because they got a good football team.
Well, I love the atmosphere at the Rock. You know, when you talk about college football stadiums and all of the traditions, I love going to small schools. As a matter of fact, this coming week, I'm going to go to the Texas-Oklahoma game in Dallas. And then when I come back, I'm going over to North Carolina A&T versus FAMU.
So you'll be going from the Cowboys Stadium to...
Well, it's the Oklahoma-Texas games played at the Cotton Bowl.
Oh, okay.
And then I'll come back to North Carolina to watch NC against Florida A&M. So I'm looking forward to that. I haven't been to a historically black college football game in a long time, and I'm looking forward as much to the bands as I am to the football game. And NC A&T's got a pretty good football team, so I'm looking forward to seeing that.
That A&C game will probably be a better quality game than the Oklahoma-Texas game.
I'm hoping so. I assume you mean that you think Oklahoma's going to win. At least that's what I'm hoping. So, but yeah, I'm a huge college football fan. I love high school football. I love college football, and I grew up having grown up in Miami, Florida, and Biloxi, Mississippi. I'm a Miami Dolphins fan from back in the day. We had one of my favorite stories was when I was in Miami with Mom and Dad. We go to church on Sundays, and our preacher at the church had season tickets that were right in front of us in the Orange Bowl. And so he had, on days that the Dolphins had a home game at 1 o'clock, the service would start at 11.
Oh, you know his sermons were short those
He
days.
had what he called his football sermons that were only about 5 minutes instead of 20 minutes. So we'd get out of church at 11:45 instead of 12 o'clock. And we'd be sitting in our seats, and he'd walk in just as kickoff was coming. And for those of you that remember the old Miami Dolphins, this was in the days Bob Greasy was the quarterback, and Nick Bonacani was still playing linebacker. And my favorite player was a fullback named Norm Bulash. Norm Bulash and Larry Zonka were the running backs.
Larry Zonka is my third cousin.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that. In my best, Johnny Carson. I did not know that. Johnny Carson, by the way, Joel, he's young. Johnny Carson was a TV show host late at night years ago.
I've heard the name.
You've heard? Great. Thanks. Can I get an amen from some of my old people about how cool Johnny Carson was? So, anyway.
I was going to say, that's back when the Miami Dolphins uniforms were like the best in the NFL.
Well,
now they're kind of lackluster.
That was back in the day where you never knew when Miami at home games. You never knew whether they were coming out in the orange shirts or the green shirts, and they had the dolphin jumping through the little sun as their mascot logo, which of course has been made fun of in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective and movies like that. But the Orange Bowl was a blast back in the day. It was rocking too. I mean, it was a fun stadium because you could see everything from the Orange Bowl. It was a lot of fun.
I just don't know, like, why some of these teams just make the uniform choices they do nowadays.
Well, the kids these days like those crazy uniform combos, and that's how they sell athletic apparel. The NFL makes as much money off the field as it does on the field these days.
Easily,
so
yeah.
When you look at that, and colleges have figured that out now. Oregon was kind of the leader of that with the guy that Phil Knight, I think it is, that owns Nike, and being an Oregon graduate. And you had them coming out with all these crazy uniforms, and then about 10 years ago, Maryland showed up on the field. I remember watching the TV when Maryland came on the field, and I said, oh my gosh, they look like a bunch of crash test dummies out there with those yellow helmets and the red shirts. Oh, it was just horrible. It was horrible.
You see some pretty just shocking things nowadays.
Well, and my dad's one of those people, and he's like, I don't understand why they can't do the traditional stuff. Well, the kids like it. So I like seeing some of the uniform combinations that you see, and you see it in basketball too. With remember when the Baylor basketball team came out
those
in
highlighter
green, yellow.
They were yellow,
and they even had the shoes that went along with it, and their floor man. Just goodness, it was just hard to watch on TV. So that's what the kids like, and that's part of what makes college football fun. There's nothing like showing up on a college campus, and if you're at Ohio State, the dotting of the I of the script Ohio from the Ohio Best Band in the Land, or whether it's Renegade at Florida State, or the Sooner Schooner at Oklahoma, or Sebastian the Ibis at the University of Miami, and the Trojan from the Trojan Horse and Warrior from USC, and
some great traditions.
There's some great, the University of Colorado was one of my favorites. Ralphie the Buffalo. I remember they let Ralphie out one time when I was watching a game on TV, and they had to delay kickoff a few minutes because Ralphie got away and ran somebody over. So it's always fun to. And Auburn University. I want to go to a game at Jordan Hare. So that I can watch the eagle fly as people scream "War Damn Eagle."
Have you seen the new Flyers mascot, Gritty?
I saw the new Flyers mascot.
I am a huge fan of Gritty.
Are you?
He's terrifying. The googly eyes are freaky. I love it.
I think he looks like Elmo on an acid trip. He is just creepy looking to me. I can't imagine having my child stand next to him and taking a photograph.
He's the Fanatic's intoxicated cousin.
No doubt.
Yeah,
no doubt.
I'm a big fan of Gritty.
I'm not used to that one yet, so I'll have to defer.
Who's the App State's mascot?
Well, the Appalachian State is the Mountaineers. So Yosef is the App State mascot, and he wears a gold and black flannel shirt and black pants and big old boots, and he's got his Mountaineer hat on.
Was Yosef excited on Saturday.
Yosef is actually always pretty. Yosef is one of the better mascots about interacting. Mm-hmm. And he spends a lot of time in the student section. So you can actually follow Yosef from Appalachian on Instagram and see all of the photos that the kids post of him. And it's really cool. It's a lot of fun. And then, of course, when you've got fireworks and guns and muskets going off after scoring.
When the team's really good.
Yeah, it's always fun to see that kind of thing going on, and I just love the pageantry of college football and all of the cool stuff. You know, we were at homecoming at Appalachian State this past week, and they introduced the homecoming court, and the ROTC from the school presents the colors as the band plays "America the Beautiful," and it's just really cool.
That's good. Who did they play?
They played South Alabama.
What was the score?
Way too many to not enough. If it were a high school game, it would have been a running clock in the second half.
So App State is 5-0.
App State is unbeaten. They are
4-0.
They are 3-1 overall. The only loss they've had was to Penn State, and that was in overtime.
Oh, that's right.
So
yeah, I forgot about that.
And having seen, you know, of course, I'm a Florida State fan, so I've seen what horrid things Florida State did the first couple of games. And then yesterday, the offensive line started to see some improvement. They had an injury that came back. Our guy that was injured came back to play, and the offensive line got a little bit better. And then they go down to take on Miami this week. So that will be an interesting one. That one's in Coral Gables. Mm. And so Miami kind of laid an egg the first game of the season and now has started to look decent. And then they just pretty much pasted UNC the other night. On Thursday night.
Do you still think App State could beat Florida State?
I think App State would beat Florida State right now. Mm-hmm. If I had to rank the teams in North Carolina right now, I would have NC State number 1, I'd have App State number 2, and I'd have North Carolina A&T number 3.
Yeah.
And I think App State would beat Wake Forest. I think App State would beat East Carolina. I know I got a lot of East Carolina friends that are going to holler at me for that one, but it is what it is.
Well, ECU is interesting because I saw a stat where they're 2-2, right? They've actually outgained, led in the turnover battle, and they've beaten all these teams and all the stats possible, but they're 2-2.
They can't put the ball in the end zone.
No.
They can't. They're trading field goals for touchdowns, and you can't do that at a high level. And that's what it's kind of funny on Saturday last week because Appalachian scored about 2-3 minutes into the game. South Alabama came back down the field and made it 7-7, mm-hmm. and you kind of got the feeling that App State went, okay, they're going to try to punch us back, so we got to put this away. And all of a sudden, it was 21-7 at the end of the first quarter. And it's the sad part about something like that is half the stadium leaves at halftime when it's a 35-7 game at the half. And then you have these great comebacks like what Ohio State did last night against Penn State, coming from down 13 in the fourth quarter to win the ball game.
That's what drives me the most crazy in sports in general is when the team gets up, they kind of lay off the gas.
Well,
that's what happened to Penn State last night.
And see here, I don't think so. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. Growing up as an FSU fan, everybody in the 90s complained that Bobby Bowden ran up the score. Everybody complained that Oklahoma and Barry Switzer ran up the score, and that Jimmy Johnson and Miami ran up the score. And I'm one of those people that believes that if I am the team that is beating you into the ground, it is your job to stop me. Yeah. And if I put a third stringer on the field in the fourth quarter, I cannot possibly tell that third stringer, no, whatever you do, don't score. That third stringer is trying to earn a job for next season, and they're trying to learn. So if I put in a third string quarterback and a third string wide receiver, and I throw the ball, you can't be angry at me for doing that. Now, if I'm up 54-6 with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and I've got all my starters in there, and I'm pegging the ball downfield, that's a whole different ball game. Yeah. But if I've got second and third stringers in there and we're working through the next level of the team and preparing for next year, which is what a lot of coaches have to do. You take a freshman that's on the field and you develop them so that the junior and senior year they become the leader of your team, so they learn how to play on the field. They learn what it feels to be like in one of those atmospheres.
That's what good programs do.
That's what good programs do.
Look at Wake Forest High School.
Well, you don't rebuild, you reload. And if you look at the dynasties that have been there over the last 50 years of sports, it's the same thing with all of them. They took good players and they built the program, and the program drives the expectation, not the individual player. And the players make the program, but the program is what drives it. The problem with it is it comes when the Barry Switzer, who was the Oklahoma coach for years, book that was written about him years ago called Bootlegger's Boy, because he's a son of an Arkansas bootlegger. And he said that coaching at the University of Oklahoma was like feeding a monster. And this particular monster ate wins. Mm-hmm. And whenever you didn't feed the monster a win, I mean, there were seasons where he had 2 losses in a season and people would call for his head because he didn't beat Texas or didn't beat Nebraska. I remember when Colorado was in the national championship picture back in the early 90s with Eric Bieniemy and all of those guys. When they won, I think they split the national championship one year or won it outright. I don't remember exactly because it was so long ago. But people in Oklahoma were livid that Colorado had beaten out Oklahoma and Texas, because that was back in the days of the Southwest Conference. And there was this expectation that the winner of the Oklahoma-Texas game was going to win the conference championship.
So, back to App State, how do you see the rest of their year going right now?
Well, App State, when you look at their schedule and what they've got going on, they've got a couple of games that are going to be really important, and they're odd-timed games. Appalachian State's next game is against Arkansas State, and it's on Tuesday, October 9th. Mm-hmm. And I think that game and the Georgia Southern game that App will play on October 25th, and that's a Thursday night game, and that's one that I would suggest you turn into. It's a 7:30 p.m. kickoff on October 25th. I think those two games, if App wins those, I think they're easily in the top 25 in the country. And the only downside of it is because they are a Sun Belt team, they're not going to get an opportunity against a Power 5 team. Yeah. So they're going to play. Last year they played Toledo down in Mobile at the Dollar General Bowl. Now, we had a good time in Mobile at the game, but I think the final score was like 35-0. It was not much of a game, and Toledo was supposed to have this great offense, and App just stuffed them. And this is the same Appalachian State team. Remember, we talked about Ohio State and Penn State last night being a one-point game. This is the same App State team that took Penn State to overtime.
Penn State to death.
And should have beaten them had it not been. Yeah. My opinion was that if they'd have run the ball, they tried to throw the ball for the first down at the end of regulation, and had they just run the ball to the center of the field and given the kicker the opportunity for the field goal, I think they would have beaten Penn State. But for some reason, they threw it instead.
It's really because you weren't there.
I know that's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts, and if ifs, ands, or buts were candy and nuts and all of that stuff. And as my father said, if a frog had wings, he wouldn't bump his ass every time he hit the ground. But I really think that would have been a big deal, and they've got a history of doing that kind of thing. Next year is going to be real interesting for Appalachian State, because the third and fourth games of their schedule next year are at the University of North Carolina in Kenan Stadium, and the following week they go to Williams-Brice Stadium in Columbia, South Carolina, to take on the University of South Carolina. So App's going to have a shot at both Carolina and Carolina next year, the third and fourth weeks of the season. I think they'll be competitive in the North Carolina game based on what I'm seeing.
Just based on this year, I would say.
I'm pretty sure that Millbrook would have a shot at UNC this year in Kenan, based on what I'm seeing. I know that Carolina fans are going to hate me for that. But the Carolina just looks like a dumpster fire right now, and I'll be surprised if Larry Fedora is there next year. I think he needs 7 wins to keep his job, and I don't think he's going to come close to it.
Quick Carolina stat: they're 1-3 right now. They've scored 84 points, but given up 147.
Yeah, and watching them against Miami on Thursday night last week, I just don't see. I just don't see that happening. I didn't like the Larry Fedora hire when they hired him. I was questioning because, I'm one of those people. I've watched Southern Mississippi football for years, having lived in Biloxi, and I wasn't really that impressed with him when he was there.
He's not really a guy that inspires confidence in you when he can't remember things.
Well, the thing that people have to remember is that big-time college football these days is different. The head coach is no longer the guy drawing X's and O's for the most part. They are the CEO, and they're a fundraiser, and they're the person that's trying to talk the big boosters into building the $300 million indoor practice facility and stuff like that all of the football players want.
They're figurehead.
Yeah, and you've got your guys like Jimbo Fisher at Florida State. He used to call the offensive plays, and he had a couple of other people that actually ran the program in the way that many head coaches do. But Bobby Bowden in his last probably 10 years didn't really coach that much. Now, he would make the decision on when it was 4th down and 1 at the opponent's 31-yard line, he'd make the decision to go for it or kick the field goal. But that's about all that they do because it's their butt on the line that has to explain it at the post-game press conference.
So in the ACC, Duke lost to Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech kind of handled them.
Well, but Virginia Tech's a different ball club than the one that you saw beat Florida State on Labor Day night because they've lost their quarterback. And Virginia Tech's biggest challenge that they have is their defensive line is decent. But their linebackers don't seem to have the lateral speed to handle somebody that can get to the edge. Duke just doesn't have that guy. If Duke had somebody like Bryce Love that could turn the corner and get to the edge, then they would have something. But Duke is so dependent upon the quarterback.
They're still in good shape,
and the wide receivers.
They were 4-0 going into that game.
Yeah, Duke has a good ball club. They are a good team. They are not a great team, and they're certainly not an elite team. And neither is Virginia Tech. I think Virginia Tech ultimately ends up being a third-place team in their division of the ACC.
Yeah, I can see that definitely. That was a big win for them coming off that loss to ODU.
Well, and that's a great example of what inconsistency can do to you. Yeah. The same if Virginia Tech had played ODU like they played Florida State, then they'd have won that game 50-0. But for some reason, that's part of what's fun with college football. What you expect to happen doesn't always happen.
I wasn't expecting Virginia Tech to re-enter the top 25, but they did. They're at number 24.
Well, and they're getting credit for beating a Duke team that was thought to have the potential to be a top 25 team.
Well, they were top 20. What were they, 22?
Well, but I mean at the end of the year. And I think Duke's one of those borderline teams that ends up between 20 and 27, maybe 30, depending on, it's one of those teams that a couple of games could go either way depending on how well they play.
NC State entered the rankings for the first time this year. They're at number 23 in the country after beating Virginia 35-21.
Cool.
I was at that game.
Were you? Okay.
Yes, I was. Carter Finley.
Well, and of course, we have to talk about Ricky Person Jr.
Ricky Person, he played in the first game. He got a little banged up. He had a hamstring issue. He didn't play the next two games against, who was it?
Those other teams.
They played Marshall. I forget who it was week 2. Anyways, he came back for the first time since game 1, and he had 14 carries, 108 yards, the first 100-yard rusher NC State's season. He had a couple long runs. He had a 20-something yarder, then one that was almost 40 yards. And both of them set up touchdowns for Ryan Finley to his receivers.
Well, and NC State had 160-something yards rushing, and historically when NC State can run the ball, they tend to do well. And I was surprised that NC State's team is playing a little bit differently than they have in the past, and I know Pac fans get frustrated that they don't come out smoking hot right off the bat, but what NC State does is they're playing to get to the fourth quarter because they're wearing down other teams because they've got so much talent. Ryan Finley yesterday had threw to a total of 8 receivers.
And that's what happens when you get that running game going.
That's right.
The defense, they can't really focus on those guys.
Yeah, you had Kelvin Harmon, Amika Amizi, Jacoby Myers, and Thayer Thomas.
NC
all
State
caught
has the best
multiple.
receiving group in the ACC.
I'm not sure that I can disagree with that.
It's not
I mean,
even close.
it's a good crew, and I think they easily have one of the better quarterbacks. They've got one of the better passers in the
Ryan
in the
Finley
ACC.
has a chance of being a first-round pick in the NFL draft.
I don't
He's
know
a
if,
chance.
I don't know if he's a first rounder. I think he's a solid third rounder. I don't know
think
that he's
he
a
goes
first
third
rounder.
at latest.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't see that, but
And-
we'll see. But historically, the NC State model has been there, and of course, you fully expect for NC State fans to be up for the Florida State game and things like that, and then they're probably getting a win against Carolina, so they're going to be there.
They're in good shape.
Yeah, they're in good shape because they're 4-0 at this
The
point.
big thing is just they can get that run game consistent with Ricky.
Well, and the biggest problem that NC State has every year, they start out and they get to 6-0, and then all of a sudden something happens, and 3 weeks in a row they lose games that they shouldn't, and then they play Carolina and win that, and all of a sudden the people get excited. But NC State fans are finally seeing what you get when you let a coach run his system, let him recruit to the system. You got to give Debbie Yao credit. She's let Doeren have a long leash, even though a lot of NC State fans were calling for his head last year because of some decisions that he made. But ultimately, he's beating ACC talent teams by recruiting locally. I mean, they've got probably 13 players on the roster that are from Wake and Durham and the Triangle area.
And what we see now is just the beginning of it. The 2019 group is incredibly deep.
Yeah, and you've got players like Thayer Thomas that's now I think he's a redshirt freshman if I remember correctly, but
Yes.
that's getting some playing time. Also as a punt returner, you look at Alim McNeil.
Aleem McNeil's starting for them.
Yeah, he when he was at Sanderson High School, I was really impressed with him. He's
a load.
He is one of those guys that just has a nose for the ball and knows where to go.
What NC State's doing a good job of is that preferred walk-on spot. Originally, Thayer Thomas was a preferred walk-on, and I saw that he's offered a guy from Cardinal Gibbons, one of their good receivers, a preferred walk-on spot. He's really good at those kind of with those kind of players from around the area.
Absolutely. And Doeren, to Doran's credit, he himself shows up on Friday nights. I remember last year. At one of the games, he showed up on the sidelines, and of course we welcomed him from the press box. And he can't comment on who he's watching, but you know who he's watching. Everybody know. When you watch him come out and see the coaches standing on the sideline, you got 3 or 4 coaches standing there. I mean, at the Wake Forest Heritage game last year, there were 7 college football coaches that were standing on the sidelines.
Yeah, I remember talking to David Cutcliffe before that. Yeah.
Yep, Cut was there, and Cut's still one of the best teachers of quarterbacks that there is. What happened to him at Tennessee is a travesty, but I'm glad Duke's got him, and I'm glad he's got the ACC. For me personally, is more fun when Duke is on the map and at least competitive.
I'm excited to see how he can develop Gunner over the years.
Well, I think they've got a couple of players ahead of Gunner. I think Gunner's probably 2 years from really getting significant playing time, but I think Gunner's probably got a better arm at this point than their starters did. But there's so much that can happen between now and whenever, and you saw what could happen with Bryant down at Clemson, who walked off the practice field this week and said, I'm transferring.
That's a whole other...
Boy, was that a mistake, because he'd be sitting in the driver's seat right now if he'd have just sat around for 3 or 4 more days. Yeah. And, I remember one time I quit a job very early on in my career, and the boss that I was frustrated because I hadn't been promoted as quickly as I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. And the boss looked at me after I quit. He says, I accept your resignation, but you're a dummy because I was going to promote you this coming week. You really screwed up and cost yourself about $20,000 a year. And I was, of course, livid. And I said, well, can I still do it? He says, no, you've shown your loyalty's not here. That's what kids don't understand these days. Yeah. And the upside of it is that, kids get this great opportunity. The downside of it is that, the universities are using the kids. They're using their likenesses. They're making money off of them. The kids are making a ton of money in the football program for these universities, and there's a legit argument as to how much control over their likeness should they have. When you look at NC State, there's a reason there are so many number 15 jerseys in that stadium, and that's Ryan Finley. There's a reason there are so many.
I bought a number 87 jersey.
There you go. You got a Thayer jersey. You got a lot of people that still wear Torrey Holt jerseys and
Russell Wilson
and things like that. Those kids deserve, in my eyes, to get something. And I'm a fan of figuring out a way to put money into we'll call it an account for a lack of a better word, but putting money into an account while they're in school, and then once they earn their degree, giving them access to that account. I think, I think we are beginning to miss the word student from student athlete. And just for the record, I don't think any of this is ever going to happen. Because if you ask me, the Power 5 conferences are eventually going to separate from the NCAA and go tell them to pound sand. And they're going to control football and basketball. And they're going to have the national championship football game. The Dr. Pepper and FedEx and Toyota are going to be willing to throw multiple millions of dollars to an 8-team playoff format that gives all of the conference champs and all of the
blimps and everything.
They're going to have all the blimps and everything, and they're going to have a 3-game playoff and still do the 12-game season, which will give you 15 games over the time. And then they're going to have the NCAA basketball tournament that they're going to expand. And you're basically going to start with 5 conferences that each have 16 teams. So all 80 teams are going to have a shot at the playoffs when you begin the season, and you're going to have elimination games all through the year.
The big thing is, those TV contracts aren't with the NCAA; they're with all the conferences.
That's correct. Correct. Well, and you look at the University of Texas has their own network.
Yeah.
The ACC now has its own network. If the conference controls the TV network,
that's where the money comes from.
That's where your money's coming from. You can look at any sport. There are empty seats at every NFL game. Charlotte Motor Speedway this week had the Roval race, the Bank of America 400 or whatever it was called. And they were having a hard time selling seats and selling tickets, and that's because the TV package is better than what you see at the game when you're in the stadium.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that with college football. I think that's different. I think that there's a loyalty to the college football programs when you gave 4 years of your life to that, and especially when there's a legacy where, I have a bumper sticker that says my money and my daughter go to Appalachian State University.
Yeah.
When you've got that tie-in there and there's that loyalty that comes along with it, I think that it's just a different atmosphere. Ultimately, the biggest problem with the Power 5 separating from the NCAA is it will leave teams like East Carolina and the Appalachian States and the Western Carolina and NCA&T. It's going to leave all those teams on the sideline, never to have an opportunity at the big money. And it's going to be kind of like watching the minor league baseball versus major league baseball. The minor leagues is what's going to draw the crowds to the stadiums, but the big money is going to be on TV.
I think that purity that you talk about is one of the big reasons why I gravitate towards high school football.
Sure,
because
they're still playing for the love of the game.
All the stuff
all
that
about
you talk
pride.
about.
It's all about pride.
It also comes into play there.
Well, and the cool thing about high school, and that's what makes the Wake Forest and Wakefield and Heritage and Rolesville rivalry so good. These are kids that played on the same team when they were on the Wake Forest Bulldogs,
or even
and
on
the
the same
Mighty
middle
Mites,
school team,
and may have been even on the same middle school team.
It happens a lot.
And when a running back from Wake Forest gets the opportunity to truck a linebacker from Wakefield that they used to play side by side with, playing both ways,
they're going to take the opportunity.
They're going to take the opportunity to do it, and that's what makes it fun.
So let's talk about high school football.
Okay.
So the NAC 6 conference, I think there's a consensus around the area. It's easily the best conference.
I don't think there's any question about that
around here.
I don't think there's any
Within
question about
miles.
that. Yeah.
You have Wake Forest, who's Wake Forest. We're going to talk about an interesting situation with them.
Okay.
Then Knightdale is having a great year, and Knightdale's young. A year or two from now, Knightdale could be.
Next year, Knightdale's going to be dangerous.
Yeah.
Knightdale will be a dangerous team. Knightdale's a sleeper team this year. It's going to depend on their injuries to skill positions.
Right,
they're 4-1. They got a good ball club. They got a good coach. if I remember correctly, one of the coaches from Heritage actually went over there.
Vasile,
yeah. And
I think he's their OC.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
He went from O-line coach at Heritage to OC at Night.
Correct. And so that'll be an interesting game to watch with Jeremy Buck calling the plays for Heritage and Vasile calling the plays for Nightdale.
Even Corinth Holders now has a 500 record. They're 3-3.
Corinth Holders is 3-3, has a 500 record, but I still think they are the bottom of the conference. I think it's Wake Forest at the top. I think it's Corinth Holders at the bottom, and I think on any given night, any of the other teams can beat each other.
So the current standings right now: Wake Forest is 5-0, Heritage is 5-1, Nightdale's 4-1, Rosedale's 3-3, Corinth Holders is 3-3, Wakefield's 2-4.
And to give you an example, in the very first game of the season, Heritage went to Panther Creek and just absolutely blew them out. Mm-hmm. Then the following week, they came home and played Middle Creek and got beaten by Middle Creek in a game that they had the better talent, in my opinion, but just didn't play up to par. And last week, Panther Creek beat Middle Creek.
Panther Creek dominated Middle Creek.
Panther Creek dominated Middle Creek.
7 days of that game.
I don't know if there was an injury in there that was going on, but I'll tell you what.
Middle Creek's having issues.
I don't remember what the kid's number was, but number 6 for Middle Creek that was their running back, he's a rock star. He trucked Heritage players a couple of times, and he did it again the following week, and I don't remember which game I was watching on that one. But he's, and this is part of the fun about high school ball is because players get up for games, they don't get up for games, and I think the hardest thing to learn as a sophomore or a junior on the field at high school, you can't just rely on your raw talent anymore to get you there. You have to use technique, and
you have to use smarts.
If you watch it, the same mistakes and fundamentals that are made in high school, tackling with your forehead up, wrapping your arms around the offensive player to bring him down, and putting weight to draw him off his feet. College players don't do that. They're so busy trying to get that ESPN top 10 hit that they forget to do the fundamentals and just play solid defense and things like that. And that's what really frustrates me at the high school level. And a lot of players, and this is across the board, and it's part of the same thing that comes with the me generation, but you got so many kids more worried about how good they look on their huddle highlight that they can upload to Twitter and stuff like that so that their friends can tell them how great they are.
I think we've seen the coaches start to get a better handle on that.
Well, I think it's getting there. But
back when it first started, they didn't really...
Well, and being an announcer, the biggest frustration I have, for God's sakes, coaches, put your current roster on MaxPrep so we can download it. I mean, that's the worst thing you can do for a kid is to not put his name and the jersey number he's wearing, so that when we get the opportunity to call his name, a player not listed on the roster, and all of a sudden his mother comes across from saying, well, this is my baby's name, that's what his number is. We can avoid things like that. A lot of these kids won't get the chance to get their name called after high school. So for crying out loud, put somebody in charge of MaxPreps and tell them to keep it up to date.
As someone that has run MaxPreps before, it is not hard to use.
It is not complicated. I can do things.
There is a big plus button, green plus button. You click it. Then you put first name, last name, and number. That's all you got to do.
Do you hear me, coaches? Do you hear me, coaches?
So those
I'm not talking to anybody specific, but there's a particular team in this market that does not keep up with their MaxPreps.
Who could it
be? And it's frustrating. But they do it great for basketball season, but they don't do it with their football team.
Yes. Yeah. So those standings that I brought up earlier, they don't apply to the actual conference finish because they're non-conference games.
Right.
But conference play starts this Friday, October 5th. But there's an interesting situation with Wake Forest.
You talking about the Southern Nash game?
Yeah. So Wake Forest started playing Southern Nash, which was a makeup from the hurricane.
Correct.
But then this game ended up getting postponed because of lightning.
Yeah. And they both want to play this game.
Yes.
Because and Southern Nash is 3A, correct? If I remember correctly.
Yeah. So it's interesting because they played one quarter, right? And Southern Nash is not going to let the game just go into what do you call it? Like, they're not going to let the game go away because Southern Nash was playing Wake Forest pretty tough.
Right.
Southern Nash jumped out to a 7-0 lead. Zonovan Knight had an 80-yard rushing touchdown. Wake Forest countered that, made it 7-7. Then Southern Nash took a 10-7 lead with a field goal.
Mm-hmm.
Then Mateo Sudipo had a kickoff return on the following kickoff for a touchdown. So it was going on. It was 14-10. It was a pretty tight game. They're still in the first quarter, but we don't know when they're going to pick that up again.
Right.
And Southern Nash, even though they're in a smaller classification, they're no slouch.
Well, you want to hear my sleeper for the year, and they're not a sleeper anymore?
Who?
Don't sleep on Enloe High School. Undefeated.
No one's sleeping on it.
Enloe's, but if you listen to the chatter on forums and stuff like that, kids are talking about Enloe, like it's the Enloe of 4 years ago. This is a different Enloe ball club. They've got some talent. They've got some potential here.
We'll see what happens with Enloe when they play Cardinal Gibbons and Leesville in that conference.
So let me ask you this, Joel, because I don't know the answer to this. I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, so you may not have the answer. But I understand there have been some more changes to the NCHSAA's playoff system, where they're bringing where they're trying to solve the wild card problem in the conferences. Do you have any insight?
That's interesting because the way it's working, we might get 5 or maybe all 6 next 6 teams in the playoffs. And basically the way it's different is the qualifications part, not the seeding part, from what I understand. So now your place in your conference finish is now more important than it was last year. So you can't, if you're a third place team in the conference, you can't get in before the second place team in your conference, even if you have a better max rep rank.
Right.
Even if your overall record's better, if you didn't do as well in conference, you're not going to get in before them.
Got it.
And so basically what happened was, I guess, a couple of teams finished well in their conference last year, and because of their max rep strength, they didn't really get in. But the max reps computer is
flawed at best.
I wouldn't say it's. I'd say generally it's pretty accurate.
Think so?
If you look at it, the top teams end up being the top teams are usually at the top all year. Because what it does is it factors in strength of schedule.
Right.
Which high school, before they used the max reps, they used to have all these teams that would schedule really soft opponents and build up their overall record. I remember there's a couple of basketball teams in the western part of Wake County who I won't mention.
Yeah.
Kind of played some lesser competition and ended up with 27 wins in the regular season.
Right.
27 wins. But that's just not how it works anymore.
It was all done for their pride.
Yeah. Max reps, they're still using max reps to seed the teams, but as far as qualifications go, it's more about conference standing now.
Gotcha. Yeah. Very good.
So the Southern Nash Wake Forest game is interesting because Wake Forest plays Knightdale this week on Friday.
Right.
So I don't think Wake Forest is going to want to play that game this week before the Knightdale game. So they have to get it in at some point. So I wonder when they're going to try to get that scheduled and when, how much is Southern Nash going to be willing to work with them on that?
Well, I think what you ultimately have to look at for those two teams is you got to be careful about playing too many games and not enough time, because it takes your body time to recover from playing football. And you don't want to put yourself in a position where you could cause an injury to somebody that could be important down the road. But both of those teams want to win that game. And I think it's Southern Nash is historically a good program and has a chance on the field at least against Wake Forest, as does anybody. But Southern Nash looks good on paper when you look at them.
Well, from the Wake Forest perspective, if you have to play Southern Nash before a Knightdale team, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's make it harder on
you. It could be the equivalent of running into a Mack truck head on. But I'll be interested to see how it comes out. But I'm pretty sure Reggie Lucas, the coach at Wake Forest, is not going to do anything to damage his record in the conference, because he knows that winning the conference, nobody can say no to them.
Yeah. So one thing for sure, that Knightdale Wake Forest game will happen. Wake Forest at Knightdale, October 5th. That'll be a pretty good game.
It's this Friday night. It should be a great game.
Yep. And then,
it should be a great game.
Heritage has Corinth Holders, but Wakefield and Roseville is going to be a pretty interesting game, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think
that game is going to tell us a lot.
There are some people that think Corinth Holders has turned a corner at 3-3. I still think they're not there yet. And I think Heritage probably goes through the air to win this one. I think you'll probably see 8-9 receivers catching passes from Walker Harris.
Well, Heritage is a young team. It'll be a lot of their players' first time in conference. They struggled with Holly Springs their last time out.
Yeah, and I think that the big challenge that Heritage players have is they haven't learned when they get a lead, they haven't learned to step on the throat yet.
That's what we talked about earlier.
And I think that's something that's very important to be able to do. They don't have the ability to do like we were talking earlier with Appalachian State and be even the other team scores a touchdown, instead of being 7-7 at the end of the first quarter, it's 21-7. They don't have that ability.
And that's what Wake Forest does better than anybody.
Wake Forest plays from in front and just demoralizes
They try to get
teams.
50 by halftime every game.
Yeah, and you know, I remember back in the days of the 80s of Oklahoma football when Bosworth and all those guys were there, they come out of the locker room hollering half a hundred. And when teams put it on you early, you know, the other thing that's been very interesting that I have watched this year is that coaches with teams that are on the winning side, they do not want to get to the running clock because they want their backups to have time to play. So I have seen coaches adjust their play calling in order to prevent getting up by 42 points. I think it's 42.
It's 40.
And to cause a running clock.
It's a lot.
So it's a significant number, but we've seen it where it would be 42-3, and you would all of a sudden see some strange substitutions, and the team would lose yards on third down. It's an interesting dynamic that brings itself into play because you've got the choice of, okay, I can take away the fourth quarter of work from my team, or I can go ahead and put my sophomores and juniors and a few freshmen on the field and get them some playing time in a real game. How will they react?
I think this Wakefield Roseville game is very interesting because football is different from basketball or soccer. You don't play teams twice.
Right.
You only have one shot. And this will definitely play a role in determining the order of the conference, I think, when it's all said and done.
Oh, yeah. I think I think Wakefield is stronger than people give them credit for. I think Rolesville is a team that is dealing with consistency issues. They play really well against one team, and then they lay an egg against another. Heritage is guilty of playing to their competition. Knightdale really hasn't been tested yet, in my opinion. Wakefield, if I remember correctly, what's Wakefield's record?
Wakefield's 2-4. They played a tough.
They played a very difficult non-conference schedule.
They played Mill Creek tight.
Yeah.
Who else? I can't
they've
remember.
They've been in some games that they shouldn't have been in, to be quite honest with you.
Wakefield played a very good Fuquay-Varina team on the road. They killed Southern Durham 61-7.
They did. I was surprised at that one.
They lost to Mill Creek by 8, but that game's closer than 8 points.
Right.
They played a good Leesville road team to start the year.
So where do you think the conference ends up? What's your order, Joel?
It's tough. Wake Forest won, obviously. I'm not sure between Heritage and Knightdale.
Mm-hmm.
Those will be the 2-3. And then, honestly, I'm not sure between Wakefield, Rolesville. This game is important because I think those four teams will all get into the playoffs when it's all said and done.
I'd agree with that statement.
But the Wake Forest Rolesville
let me make sure I understand you. You mean Wake Forest, Heritage, Knightdale, and Wakefield?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Wake Forest Rolesville game could be a difference between 5 or so seeds in the state playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that's huge.
Well, I think the Wake Forest Rolesville game is for a state playoff spot.
The Wakefield.
The Wakefield Rolesville game. Excuse me.
I think all 4 of those teams will get in.
I don't think Rolesville gets in if they don't beat Wakefield.
I meant 5. I think all 5 of them.
I'm not sure you get all 5 in. I think it's going to depend.
I think it's possible.
I don't. You know, and
it's hard to tell now.
It is, and God love you guys down at high school OT that keep track of all of that and start working late nights. I don't have the patience to deal with that minutia, but I think that.
So you think Wakefield Rolesville is basically a playoff game?
I think Wakefield Rolesville is a play-in game for the state playoffs. That's my personal opinion. We'll see if it works out that way in the long term.
I'm very interested to see the results of that one.
And then, you got November 2nd is going to be a fun weekend because you got Wake Forest against Heritage.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's on Friday night the 2nd. And then on November 3rd, Florida State comes to NC State at Carter Finley.
Yeah.
So I'll be in both of those. Looking forward to both of those.
I'll probably be at both of those as well.
So looking forward to that. But there's some great football. It's there's no doubt that the upper echelon of football is in our backyard here in Wake County, and we're excited to have it here.
Yeah.
Even gets down into the Franklintons and the Buns of the area, and get to see some of those smaller
Well, I think
ball clubs
if you're looking 5 years into the future, those teams are going to start taking off.
Oh, I think as the area grows, because I think Franklin County is getting ready to explode in terms of all the growth, and I think you're probably going to see.
It's going to be very interesting to watch in the future.
Well, but what you're going to have is you're going to have the same thing that's happened in Wake County. You're going to have Franklinton High School sharing people with what's probably another additional high school somewhere. I'm guessing you'll see a Youngsville High School eventually or something like that.
And that could easily be a 4A level.
And that could easily be a 4A level, and it could easily take some players from Wake Forest. You could see that scenario because we know that people have used whether they're going to Wakefield or Wake Forest. Back in the mid 2000s, there were cousins and uncles that they'd use those addresses in Wake County instead of the Franklin County parents' address in order to get their kids into those schools. We know that kind of thing happens.
Happens a little bit.
It does, but I also think it's sad in one way, but it's okay. You don't have the money at the county level to police stuff like that, and you shouldn't be wasting money on that. It should be more about academics at that.
I'll never have a problem with a parent putting their kid in a better situation.
No, and I don't have a problem. There's a lot of people that holler about recruiting and stuff like that going on. If I know that if I move to this district that I'm going to go to this high school and I want my kid to play for that football coach, basketball coach, or baseball coach,
you have every right to do that.
I've got every right in the world to buy a property in that location.
It doesn't only happen with athletics; it happens just.
Sure,
regular kids in general.
Well, and to give you an example, Heritage is a great example, as is Wake Forest. Wake Forest has a great ROTC program, and there are people that are former military from Jacksonville that retire in order for their kids to be in that program. Yep. For a long time, there was the gaming academy at Heritage High School, and parents would move to the area specifically for those kids to have the opportunity at things like that. So, and band parents do that. They pick where they want their kid to go to school. If they don't get into the school that they wanted to, they'll apply to go to Enloe to get in the magnet band program.
You can see the schools. You can see their test scores online.
Exactly.
The parents will use the resource and they will find the best school for their kids, and then they will do everything they can to get the kid there.
And when you are a parent, you will do anything for your kid that you need to do.
I'm saying it is not limited to athletics.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. So.
All
right. Sounds good.
I had a fun discussion.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
We need to have I wish we had a call-in type thing.
A call-in?
I wish we could do that. So
who would call in?
I don't know, but we need to get some guests on here. We need to get somebody that's a good guest to come in and visit with us.
Think about who
we'll have to figure out who we can get.
Who would be good?
I don't know, but we'll
think
find
about it.
We'll find somebody. So
I hope you enjoyed this first episode of the From the Press Box podcast.
How often are we going to do this? We're going to do this about once a month?
Whenever we feel like it.
Yeah. This is one of those that you're going to have to subscribe to know when we pick it back up. So
yeah, we'll figure it out.
I'm sure we'll talk about conference championship games and state playoffs in high school, and then when we get into basketball, we'll talk basketball. I'm sure we'll talk about bowl games the week between Christmas and New Year's and stuff like that. And then we have to preview the national championship game like everybody else does. That should be at least a 4-hour program.
That's part of the contract.
And then we'll log on with the Super Bowl 8 hours before it actually goes for kickoff. So,
if you have any ideas of things we can do, please let us know at DJ Brian Pate on Twitter.
There you go. And by the way, if you're a parent of a Franklin Academy student or athlete or a private school or something like that, we want to talk about you guys too. So let us know what's going on. If Thales wins a game, tweet us at DJ Brian Pate and let us know so that we can report all of that too, because we want to keep up with all the athletics here in the Triangle area and here, especially here in Wake Forest and Rolesville.
Also, if you have any topics you want to talk about, and I know we wanted to talk about the NFL rules, but we can't do that now because we're going a little long. But if you have any ideas for,
we'll talk NFL at some point. We'll talk about all the rules on how it's going to turn into flag football with the quarterback.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about NASCAR because we're getting into the playoff.
Some topic ideas.
So we're pretty open to any sport. I don't think I can discuss cricket because I don't know a thing about it other than they use a flat bat, and I don't understand that.
I won't discuss cricket.
You won't discuss? Okay,
I can go to the bathroom while you talk about that.
So while you're in the bathroom playing with your sticky wicket, we can discuss cricket.
Jeez.
So we'll go with that.
So ideas at DJ Brian Pate on Twitter. Email brian@paterealty.com.
Yep. Or you can hit me on Instagram at BP8Realty.
you
Hey,
go.
I'm on Snapchat now. Pate Realty Group on Snapchat. You can find
Realty
me there.
Group on Snapchat.
Pate Realty
you can see
Group.
pictures of cigars
I've
and
got
dogs.
I've got to learn how to use it. I practiced this weekend, so there's a whole bunch of Appalachian State football and band stuff and pregame.
You'll
and
figure it out.
I'll learn it eventually. So, all right, cool
Well,
deal.
thanks for listening.
You and your Eagles hat have to go.
Yeah.
Me and my Appalachian State shirt have to go to bed. It's getting late. It's past my bedtime. It's 8:38.
Wow, that's very late. Okay. Well, thanks for listening, and have a good day.